Hello guys, happy Brett Summer and welcome to a brand new video. I originally planned to make my first video after 2 weeks, my governor election prediction or my house prediction, but you are quite possibly witnessing the greatest comeback in modern political history. In late June, it looked like the election was almost guaranteed to go to Donald Trump, but since Joe Biden has dropped out of the race, we have seen insane momentum go to Kamala Harris. We saw her raise $81 million in one day, destroying the previous record of after Trump got convicted. And we saw her make a record $300 million in less than a month. She has now taken the lead in national polls in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, and we saw her approval rating absolutely skyrocket, passing both Joe Biden's and Donald Trump's. But it's not just been her growth, it's also the Trump campaign absolutely fumbling their opportunity. First with J.D. Vance saying crazy stuff, like comparing abortion to slavery, almost endorsing Project 2025, and his cat lady's comment. Turning his effect on the race from positive in the Rust Belt to overall damaging the Trump campaign nationwide, to the point where there are talks of replacing him as Trump's VP. But it's not just him. Trump, instead of campaigning on things like the economy and immigration, issues that Republicans actually do well in, he's been focusing on calling Harris not black. Needless to say, it's not working at all. And not gonna lie, I've kind of been vindicated from all the people saying Harris would do worse than Biden, because, I'm always right. Let me make something clear. The only reason right-wing news agencies have been saying Harris would do worse than Biden before we saw her skyrocket, or that her being nominated is undemocratic, is because deep down they are afraid. For 5 years, Americans have been begging for anyone who isn't an 80-year-old man with dementia or a convicted felon who lied 40,000 times while he was president. And they finally got it, and they have ran with it. I do predict this is somewhat a honeymoon phase, but when that ends, I only expect her polling numbers to fall about 1 to 2%, which isn't that much. But what she has mainly gained from this honeymoon phase, which will help her for the entire campaign, is her hundreds of millions of dollars which she has raised. Because in American politics, money is everything. The biggest reason DeSantis won by 20 points in Florida in 2022 is because DeSantis, the Republican, had $200 million in funding. Way more than Charlie Crist, the Democratic nominee. This means more ads, more reach-out campaigns, and a better shot at winning. So without further ado, let's get to the prediction. So if you don't know how I categorize my colors for different candidates, this dark blue is for states that'll be won by Kamala Harris by more than 15%. That's called safe. This is likely, which is between 15 and 5%. This is lean, which is between 5 and 1%, and then this is tilt, which is between 1 and which is anything less than 1%. Now for the Republicans, this dark red is safe for Republicans, so between 15 and so over 15. This is likely, so between 15 and 5. This is lean, so between 5 and 1, and then this is tilt, so anything less than 1. Now, the reason that I chose Josh Shapiro as Kamala Harris's VP is just he seems like the most likely option. He has like a 60% chance in betting markets for being Kamala Harris's vice president. He would probably help her the most, although if she picks Tim Walz, it would basically have the same effect. There's a lot of concerns that he would possibly alienate pro-Palestine voters. However, Kamala Harris is way more pro-Palestine than Joe Biden ever was. So I think they can kind of compensate with that. And once those voters, once attack ads in places like Michigan are put out against Donald Trump and they see that Donald Trump is even more pro-Israel than someone like Josh Shapiro or Joe Biden, and especially more than Kamala Harris, they will definitely vote in mass for Democrats. So let's get started with the states that I think will go to Kamala Harris by more than 15%. These are basically the states that Joe Biden won by more than 15% in 2020. So yeah, you got the Northeast, the West Coast, New York, Illinois. There is one state that I would like to, also Hawaii. There's one state that I would like to add here. from 2020, which is the state of Colorado. It has been shifting to the left extremely fast. We saw it vote for Hillary Clinton by like 4.9% in 2016. It voted for Joe Biden by like 13.5% in 2020. And then in 2022, it voted for like 19% for Governor Jared Polis, and by like 14.5% for the senator there, Michael Bennet. So at this point, it is basically a safe blue state, and I do not see it being under 15%. Next, for the safe states for Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, we've got Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, the famous red wall here, except wait, no. A lot of safe states like Kansas or Missouri or Montana, I actually do not see being safe states this election cycle. So I'm just going to fill these in here. And next, for the Democratic states that I think will be between 15 and 5%, there's New Mexico, Virginia, New Hampshire, Maine at large, and Minnesota. And Nebraska second. And I forgot to categorize Nebraska at large for Donald Trump. So starting off with New Mexico, there's an argument that it will shift to the right a lot because it has a lot of Hispanics there, and Hispanics have been shifting to Donald Trump. However, I just don't really see it. It voted for Joe Biden by like 10%, and I think the same will go to Kamala Harris. She has been doing very well with minorities, way better than Joe Biden. It seems, and I think she will be able to carry those by a large margin, even Hispanics. Now for Virginia, there were some talks that like it could be less than 5. Donald Trump was even ahead in polling before Joe Biden dropped out. I mean, it's basically a safe blue state at this point. You saw it vote red in 2021, but that was basically just a perfect storm. I do not see it happening again. I think it will vote for Kamala Harris by about the same margin as in 2020, just like with New Mexico, I think around 10%. For Minnesota, it voted for Joe Biden by 6% in 2020. However, it only voted for Hillary Clinton by around 1.5% in 2016. And while I did think this state was kind of competitive while Joe Biden was still in the race, now that it's Kamala Harris, I just do not see it being less than 5%. And if she picks Tim Walz, it could be 10%, honestly. Next, we got New Hampshire and Maine. Joe Biden had a special kind of way with these two states. They shifted to the left considerably in 2020. And I do still see Kamala Harris doing exceptionally good in these two states. They were kind of competitive, like the same thing with Minnesota while Joe Biden was still on the ticket. But now that he's not, I think they go to Kamala Harris by around 6%. For Maine, around 7 to 8. And then for Nebraska second, it is very suburban. It is Omaha, Nebraska, which shifted to the left incredibly fast. It voted for Romney. It voted for McCain. It voted for Trump in 2016. And then it voted for Biden in 2020. It broke for Biden in 2020, mainly because of Biden's appeal in the suburbs. And if Kamala Harris picks someone like Josh Shapiro, she can replicate that. And I think she can win Nebraska second by around like 7 to 8%. Now for the Republican states that I think are between 15% and 5%. First, we've got Montana. This state voted for Donald Trump by around 16% in 2020. However, I think it'll actually shift to the left considerably, mainly because first of all, it is kind of slowly shifting to the left, but that's not the main reason. That's because of the incredibly important Senate election, which is basically a toss-up at this point. If you want to get more of my thoughts on that, you can check out my Senate prediction. But I think that will be able to turn out a lot of Democratic voters in Montana that normally would not have voted. And I think that could help them do exceptionally well in the presidential race, get it down to around 14%. And same goes for in the House races. And they could maybe even win Montana's first House district. Next, we've got the state of Kansas. It is shifting to the left extremely fast. It has a Democratic governor, Laura Kelly, who got reelected in 2022. I think it is shifting to the left. It could be a decent swing state by around 2036, 2032. However, as of right now, it is still just not there yet. I think it'll vote for Republicans by around 13%. Next, we got the state of Missouri. The state voted in 2022 in the Senate race for for Republicans by around 13.6%, and I think that something like that could happen again. Did vote safe in the presidential race in 2020. However, I think Trump will not be able to turn out those rural voters as much, and Democrats will make more inroads there, and I think it will be just below 15%. Next, we got Nebraska's first. This has a lot of the Omaha suburbs, and just as you saw in Nebraska's second shift to the left, you can also see Nebraska's first shift to the left, except it is more to the right of Nebraska's second, so it will take more time, but I do still think it is shifting to the left, and I think it will vote. It voted for Joe Biden, or it voted for Donald Trump by just under 15% in 2020, and I think the same thing will happen in 2024. Next, we got South Carolina. He voted for Donald Trump by around 11% in 2020, and I think it'll be slightly more for Donald Trump in 2024. It is shifting to the left, and I think Kamala Harris will be able to turn out a lot of the black population that you see in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, and I think she will be able to. Donald Trump will only be able to win it by around 12 to 11%. Next, we got the state of Florida. It is shifting to the right extremely fast. It voted for Ron DeSantis by 19% for governor, and it voted for Marco Rubio by 14. No, I think it voted for him by like 15% for Senate in 2022. But what you got to understand is governor races are a lot less partisan. So you can see a lot of Democrats voting for Ron DeSantis in 2022. Just because he was more popular and they supported him. But in a federal election, I think you will see a lot of those Democrats break blue and vote for Kamala Harris. That does not mean I think it will be remotely competitive, especially since you see a lot of Democrats backing away from Florida, kind of seeing it as a lost cause. But I do still think it will only vote for Donald Trump by around 9 to 11%. Next, we got the states of Ohio and Iowa. These two are very similar. They used to be complete swing states. No Republican has ever won the White House without Ohio. Ohio was a complete bellwether since 1960, I believe. And it has determined every single presidential winner until 2020, when you saw it break for Donald Trump while Joe Biden ended up winning the presidential election. Both of these states voted for Donald Trump by 8% in both 2016 and 2020. However, what makes it different is while they voted for the same or by the same margin in those two elections, they were in completely different national environments, and the nation as a whole shifted to the left in 2020. However, these two states ended up staying the same, which means they ended up shifting to the right as a whole. And I think they will continue shifting to the right. I think Ohio will be like R plus 10. There is an incredibly important Senate race there. And I think Iowa will be like R plus 11. Maine second, it is represented by a Democrat. However, Jared Golden, and he is incredibly popular there. But it is shifting to the right incredibly fast. It was won by Obama by huge amounts in 2008 and in 2012. However, it voted for Donald Trump in 2016, and it voted for him again in 2020, contrary to what a lot of predictions saw. It seems that this district really likes Donald Trump, and it breaks a lot for these more populist policies. And I think that it will vote for him again by around 7 to 9%, just like in 2020. Next, we got the state of Alaska. This state is actually shifting to the left extremely fast. It even voted for a Democratic representative in 2022, and I expect her to win re-election again by around 10%. It is, it is shifting to the left quite fast. It voted for, I think George Bush by 31 in either 2000 or 2004. It voted for John McCain by around 25%. It voted for Donald Trump by, I think it was 15% in 2016, and it voted for Donald Trump by just over double digits in 2020. And I think it will continue this trend, and by 2024, it will be in single digits. And I think by 2028, 2032, it will be pretty competitive and basically a swing state. Next, we got the state of Texas. This is my first lean Republican state, so I think it will be just under 5%, around 4% maybe. The reason that it has been shifting to the left is a lot of people are moving to Texas from states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and California. These are highly educated young Democrats that are moving to Texas. They're moving to these big cities and the suburbs around them, and I think they have had a huge impact on Texas's politics. In 2012, it voted for Mitt Romney by like 17%. In 2016, it voted for Donald Trump by 9%. In 2020, it voted for Donald Trump by 5%. It is clear that it is voting or it is shifting to the left extremely fast. And the one saving grace for Republicans have been Republicans' gains with Hispanic voters. However, I think they will lose even this aspect, as Kamala Harris is doing exceptionally well with minorities, and especially Hispanics who aren't the Cubans that you would find in Florida. And now we are left with the Big Seven. These are the swing states that I think generally have a chance at going to either party. If Republicans do like mess something up completely, yeah, I can see Texas becoming like in play, I guess you could say. But as of right now, where it stands, these are the Big Seven swing states. These are the 7 swing states where Kamala Harris is campaigning, and these are the 7 swing states that I think have a chance at going to either party. So let's start off with the ones that I think will go to Kamala Harris by between 5 and 1%. And I'm going to start off with the state of Michigan. This is the most to the left swing state out of these Big Seven. It voted Democrat in basically every election. It voted for Barack Obama by more than 15% in 2008, which is insane. However, it managed to break Republican in 2016. However, it kind of seems like that was a fluke, honestly. In 2020, it voted for Joe Biden by 2.9%, and in the midterm elections in 2022, you saw it gain a complete Democratic legislature, and its Democratic governor, Gretchen Whitmer, be reelected by about 11%. This is largely due to the Michigan GOP just being god-awful. However, I still think it is kind of a lean Democratic state. It takes like a red splash for Republicans to be able to take Michigan, statewide. And you might raise the argument of Arab Americans, and I kind of touched on this at the beginning, but you can see this, but in short, once Democrats are able to start putting out attack ads on Donald Trump, it will make Arab Americans realize in Michigan that Donald Trump is even worse on Gaza than Joe Biden or Josh Shapiro or especially Kamala Harris. And they will break en masse for Kamala Harris. Now, the next state that I think will go to Kamala Harris by between 5 and 1% is the state of Pennsylvania. I think this state will be around the same margin as Michigan. I think it'll be like D plus 2-ish, and that's mainly because of Josh Shapiro. Without him, I think it would only be by less than 1%. He brings a lot to the state. He won his election to the governor's mansion by around 14%, and he has an extremely high approval rating in the state. He's one of the most popular governors in the entire country, which is surprising for such a close state like Pennsylvania. I think he can actually help Pennsylvania go to Harris a lot. And with Pennsylvania in Harris's category, that already puts her at 260 electoral votes. She only needs one of these states to win aside from Nevada. Her picking Shapiro would put her in a great position to win the election, as with Pennsylvania, it opens up so many paths to victory. It could be Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, or Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan. It could be anything. It could be anything. And that sets her up in a great spot. So I think in terms of just winning the election, Josh Shapiro would be the best choice. However, we are not done with lean states. The next lean state for Kamala Harris, I think, will be the state of Arizona. She is behind in the polls by around like 3% in the state of Arizona. However, it is extremely moderate. It is the state of John McCain. It is the Maverick state. And given a lot of what Trump has been saying and JD Vance has been saying, and the real threat of Project 2025, and like the Democrats are setting up Project 2025 as a real threat, and I think that will appeal to Arizona voters. I think it will go to Kamala Harris by around 1%. As she has made a lot of inroads there, and that could also be helped by Josh Shapiro, as he is a more moderate Democrat. He could seriously help her. And that puts them at 271 electoral votes. So yes, I think as of right now, Kamala Harris would win in 2024. However, we are still not done with lean states. The final lean state for Kamala Harris, I think, is the state of Georgia. This is surprising. This is frankly a shocker. However, Georgia and Arizona, while they both only went to Joe Biden by less than 1% in 2020, they're shifting to the left extremely fast, and they have a lot of minorities there, and I think Kamala Harris can help a lot. The reason Joe Biden won in these two states in 2020 was because he helped a lot in the suburbs, and Josh Shapiro or Tim Walz, whoever she picks, can seriously help her there. And she can bring out the minorities that Joe Biden simply could not. She can absolutely drive out the black vote in Georgia. We saw that in her rally in Atlanta a few days ago. She was speaking well. She was speaking clearly. She got Quavo. She got Megan Thee Stallion. And she is actually like really appealing to Georgia voters. And she can help the black vote actually turn out for Democrats, which can seriously help her in a state like Georgia or in a state like North Carolina, where they actually seriously need the black vote to turn out. And if they get the black vote to turn out enough, they may not even need to run up Biden's numbers in the suburbs like they did in 2020. So yeah, I think it will go to Kamala Harris by around like 1.5%-ish. However, it could be less than 1%. We do not know. Yeah, I think the only lean state for Donald Trump is the state of Texas, and we already went over that. Now for the tilt states for either candidate. These are states that I think will go to either by around less than 1%. These are completely close, and really I would not be surprised if the other candidate won them. And first, I'm going to start off with Kamala Harris. I think the first tilt state that she has is the state of Wisconsin. I mean, Josh Shapiro can seriously help in those Rust Belt areas. There's a lot of African Americans in the Rust Belt, which she can also really help with, and she could be more progressive in those areas, which can help turn them out. Joe Biden is the most pro-union president since FDR, and she can seriously help continue that by also including Joe Biden's 100-day promise, like what he promised by continuing Joe Biden's 100-day promise to progressives, which can seriously help turn out progressives in those areas, along with her being a minority and able to turn out black voters and women across the entire nation. That can seriously help her in those big three Rust Belt swing states, and I think it will help her do very well in the state of Wisconsin. If she picks Tim Walz, I can seriously see this becoming a lean state. If you are extremely popular in the state of Minnesota, you can do well in the state of Wisconsin, and I think Tim Walz would seriously help her do even better in Wisconsin, along with Tim Walz being a progressive, more populist, and that can seriously turn out these white working class voters in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania. However, with the more likely option of Josh Shapiro, I still think he helps her win the state. He pushes her over the finish line, and she ends up winning by like 0.7%. However, it does not get her to more than 1%, and it means that the state seriously could go to Donald Trump. And the final tilt state that I have for Kamala Harris is the state of Nevada. This state is shifting to the right. It voted for Hillary Clinton by 2.4% in 2016, and it voted for Joe Biden by 2.4% in 2020. Kind of a similar situation with Ohio and Iowa. You see the same margin and you think, oh, it's not shifting to the right, it's staying the same. However, you got to look at the national environment. And since the nation overall shifted to the left and the state stayed the same, it ended up shifting to the right. And you can see that again in 2022, where Catherine Cortez Masto, the Democratic senator there, only won re-election by around I think it was 0.6%. Either way, it was under 1%. She can seriously turn out voters in these areas that Joe Biden could not, being minorities, being Latinos. However, I do not think it's enough to replicate the success that Joe Biden had in 2020 in the state, or the success that even Hillary Clinton had in 2016. However, I do still think it is enough to carry her over the finish line. And the final state I am predicting is the state of North Carolina. This is an extremely interesting state. It does not have, its suburbs are not as important as the state of Georgia. Democrats winning in North Carolina is solely reliant on them turning out minorities in urban areas. And Kamala Harris could seriously do that. Honestly, I will say the state is completely in play for Kamala Harris. And if she plays her cards right, if she debates Donald Trump and smokes him, if she does more rallies in North Carolina, if she can turn out the black vote, yes, I do think it can carry her over the finish line, and she can win it barely for the first time since 2008 for Democrats. However, that's the problem. Democrats always seem extremely close to winning North Carolina. However, they never end up actually doing it. The last time they won a statewide race that isn't governor in the state, like senator or president, was in 2008. And since then, it has gone to Republicans narrowly every single election cycle aside from the governor elections. And I think that will probably continue. It just has too much of a history of being Republican and too much of a need for a complete turnout of Republicans. It is like the reverse Michigan, where it needs kind of a blue splash to be able to go to the Democrats. It's not just a complete neutral state like the state of Wisconsin, for example. And however, all that being said, it is a tilt state. I think it will be the closest state in this election alongside Nevada. I think it will be like 0.3. A couple, like 10,000 votes will separate Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And I seriously think that if she puts more effort into it, if they dump more money into it, if she visits it more, and if she seriously gets African Americans to turn out in urban areas like Charlotte, yes, they can win in North Carolina, and it can push Kamala Harris to 319 electoral votes. However, I just do not see that happening right now. So this is my final prediction. Kamala Harris and Josh Shapiro winning with 303 electoral votes to Donald Trump and J.D. Vance's 235. The election is not over. Donald Trump could still seriously win. You know, this could just be a honeymoon phase for Kamala Harris. He can get back on track. He can start focusing on the more important issues. That's not just like her race. Or he could even swap out J.D. Vance for someone like Doug Burgum, which could seriously help him even more. He could win this election. It's not over. However, as of right now, I do still think between Kamala Harris's momentum, the money she's made, and her just as a candidate, I think she can win. She's not a perfect candidate. She's not the next Barack Obama. But she's better than Joe Biden. She's better than Donald Trump. The main reason that Joe Biden was nominated in 2020 was because he was the man who could defeat Donald Trump. However, he did not have any real base of support. He was not even charismatic at all. Donald Trump, he's charismatic to his supporters, but aside from them, he's not. You do not have to have a good candidate to win this election. I do not think Kamala Harris is a great candidate. She's like slightly above average. However, when you are going against a man who might have dementia, or who's seriously mentally declining, or a guy who lied like 40,000 times and is convicted of 34 felonies, it's pretty easy to win. Joe Biden and Donald Trump are terrible candidates, and you do not need the next Barack Obama to defeat them. You just need someone who can turn out white working class voters, who can turn out African Americans in urban areas in the Sun Belt. And that's all you need. That's all you need. And Donald Trump is really trying his best to fumble this, given how he's campaigning and who he picked as vice president. Someone who is completely tanking it, by the way. I think Kamala Harris right now, if when the election is held in November, I do currently think that she will win, and she will win by a comfortable margin. This is the exact map of 2020. However, you do see some shifts. You see Texas and North Carolina go towards the left, and you see states like Wisconsin and Nevada shift towards the right. You see the overall trends of the nation, the Sun Belt shifting to the left, the Rust Belt shifting to the right. I understand there will be pushback to this video. However, come on, you just got to step back and realize, look at Donald Trump from an unbiased perspective. He is not that electable. 2016 was a perfect storm for him. And as of right now, I do not think that will be replicated. He only could win, or he only had a extremely high chance of winning when Joe Biden was the nominee, because he was just terrible. But now that Kamala Harris has wind behind her sails, she actually has momentum and tons of campaign funds, I think she will be the 47th president in United States history. I think Josh Shapiro will be the 50th vice president in American history. I think she will be the first woman president in American history. So that's going to be it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. It is not over. After the debate, after Joe Biden fell off a cliff, I gave Donald Trump about like a 70% chance of winning that election. Now, I think Kamala Harris has around a similar percent chance. I think she has like a 65 to 75% chance of winning the 2024 presidential election. So it could change. It could always change. Donald Trump only had like a 21% chance of winning in 2016. So he could win again. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for the support. I've seen 175 subscribers. This is crazy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.